Here is Hoosier Mojo, and this is a 16 two-hand 3-year-old thoroughbred gelding by Mucho Macho Man, and he's having his very first post-track ride today. Mojo came off the track how many days ago? Actually, about a week ago. Yeah, exactly a week ago. When we were at the Kentucky Horse Park last week for RRP, we had him, well, he was in Indianapolis, so we had him shipped to us in Lexington, Kentucky. He hung out at the horse park with us for a few days, and then he came home with us on Sunday. So now he's been back in Maryland for a couple of days, and he had his big first post-track ride today. And Mojo is a 3-year-old. He only had 2 career starts. They were quite abysmal. His first one was in September. I think he came in 6th. And then he ran the beginning of this month. He ran on October 1st. So exactly 2 weeks ago, he had his second start. He came in 8th, which I think was last. So his connections just decided to call it a day there on his racing career. And I can tell you after sitting on him today that it is pretty obvious to me that this horse definitely does not want to be a racehorse. I will surely be riding him in some small spurs the next time I sit on him. I think I was on him for like 30 seconds before I stopped, and I said that I don't think I was going to be able to make him move unless I was holding a stick. So he is very, very quiet, beautiful 3-year-old gelding with very low miles. He has great feet, clean legs, all the things, no vices, obviously no injuries. And I thought he was fantastic today for his first post-track ride. This is a really big 3-year-old. 16.2, I think, is a very respectable size, especially for a 3-year-old, because, obviously he's still got years of growing to do. So I would expect he's going to finish somewhere between 16.3 and 17 hands. But more than his height is just his width. I mean, this is an extremely solid, thick, big-boned horse. He actually seems a lot bigger than 16.2 hands to me because he's just so wide in his stature and so big-bodied, which is cool. I mean, I personally would prefer to sit on a horse that's bigger boned than not. I think probably most people do. So he's very comfortable to sit on. And on top of that, he's still got a lot of growing left to do. So Mojo is a really cute mover. He's absolutely gorgeous on top of that. Obviously he's a bit lanky and a little bit awkward in his body right now because he is, still in such a growthy period of his life. He has a beautiful trot. I had a hard time showing it off because he was just so darn quiet. Hilariously, when we had him at the horse park, obviously that's a big sort of crazy environment for him to come off the track and step into. So he was a little bit lit up, and he can be really, really fancy when he's got some adrenaline and he's a bit lit up. But now that he's back, at our quiet farm in Maryland, and nothing too exciting is going on, and he's just sort of at his neutral baseline state of mind, he's just so darn quiet. I mean, so much kicking. What you can't tell is that not only am I kicking and clucking, but my mom and Billy are standing in the middle of the ring also clucking for the entire time that I'm riding this horse. So just lots of leg strength to get Mr. Mojo here to be convinced to go on. So while he's still certainly got some growing into his trot to do, he has a fantastic canter, super balanced, rhythmic, within itself, doesn't really take monitoring from his rider, except for steering at this point, obviously, because steering him is like trying to make a cooked noodle go straight. It's just it's going in every direction, but in the most, well-mannered, sweet intentioned way. He's not doing anything but his absolute best to do all the things I'm asking him to do. He just has no idea, and he's just a big, goofy, athletic baby trying to put all his pieces together. And he's having a first ride in a new place, and so much change for him has happened in the last couple of weeks. And I mean, I just think he really couldn't have been better. And of course, I want him to develop more of a connection. Well, before we can even think about the connection, he has to find some more straightness through his shoulders. He needs to start to understand, yielding to leg pressure, all that stuff. But I mean, as far as his first baby post-track ride today, excuse me, couldn't have been better. Such a great baby brain on this horse. And in my personal opinion, you are always in for an easier trip when you start with a very baseline quiet horse, because when you take him somewhere or do something really different, Of course, adrenaline will come to any horse in that new environment or situation and is going to get them a little jazzed up. So if you're starting with a very quiet horse, a little bit of adrenaline actually just helps you out a little bit, which in his case, I think certainly will be the situation. So he has a great right lead canter transition. I asked a couple of times, excuse me, he had a great left lead canter transition. I asked him a couple of times for the right. I think I left in the video the first time I asked when he picked up the left. I think I asked him like 2 more times, and when he didn't get it, I just thought, this is easy to fix. He has a rhythmic canter, we'll just come to the pole. So first we walked over it to make sure that he was ready to do that. Trotted over it a couple of times. I think I cut that out of the video because the video was getting kind of long, but it was no big deal because obviously if trotting the pole had been a big deal, cantering over it to get the change wouldn't have gone very well. But he did do a lovely change over the pole, and so I thought he was a very good baby for that. And then because he's just so darn quiet and ridiculously cute, I thought we'd just end our ride going around the ring on the buckle with a big old loop in the rein. Of course, steering is slightly tricky riding on the buckle on this wiggly noodly 3-year-old. But other than a complete lack of steering whatsoever, obviously just a very quiet, kind-natured horse. Obviously not a racehorse. I imagine his jockey was quite exhausted at the end of his 2 starts. I was very exhausted at the end of this 15-minute ride. But I'm not complaining because, as I was saying before, it's always easier to take a quiet horse and jazz them up than it is to take a horse who is already kind of hot and on the muscle and try and calm them down. So I will always take this if I get a chance. And just what a big, beautiful horse. So much potential, all the potential in the world for this horse. He's so funny looking at the camera as he comes down that long side. So I think we're just about wrapping up this ride here, and then there's some video of him on cross size. Mojo is an absolute lover. We figured that out right away when we got him at the horse park. He loves to be loved. He wants you to rub him, to scratch him. He's itchy pretty much everywhere, it seems. He really leans into it. If you stand up near his head, he wants to reciprocate the goodwill, and he wants to itch your back as you itch his. It's very cute. And he's just very sweet to work with on the ground. He's obviously been really well handled by his connections. And he has great racing connections, and they do want to stay in touch with whoever ends up with him as his next long-term home because they're very invested in him. They loved having him. And they just did the right thing by him and recognized right away that he's not a racehorse.